I buried my oncologist 8 years ago. He was a brilliant man, thorough, the kind of doctor who remembered your name without looking at the chart. He told me in 1994 that if I kept eating the way I was eating, my body would turn against itself and I would not see 70. I did not stop eating the way I was eating. I kept my kitchen exactly as it was. I thanked him for his concern and I went home and I made supper. He passed in 2016. I sent flowers, white lilies. He would have appreciated that. My name is Constance Miriam Webb. I turned 90 years old on the 2nd of November. I still tend my own garden. I still drive myself to the market on Tuesday mornings. I still cook from scratch every single day, using the same ingredients my mother used, the same ingredients her mother used, and I have not had so much as a suspicious blood panel in 19 years. The young doctor I have now, he looks like he graduated last Thursday, called my last results frankly unreasonable for someone your age. I told him I'd take that as a compliment. He didn't seem to know what to do with me. I'm not here to sell you something. There is no course. There is no kit. There is no morning protocol available for 4 easy installments of anything. I am here because my great-niece Vivian set up a camera in my kitchen and said, "Aunt Connie, you need to tell people what you know." And I said, "Vivian, people need to hear considerably more than they're being told. But before I tell you about the food, I need you to understand why. I have lost Walter. I have lost my sister Adele. I have lost Rosetta and Martin and more people than I have years left to name. And the thing I have noticed after 90 years of losing the people you love is that when I cook the way my mother cooked, when I use the same things she used and her mother used before her, they come back for a moment. Not literally, but close enough that it matters. These foods are not just what has kept this body running. They are where everyone I have ever loved still lives. I'm telling you this now because the food and the life are not separate things. You'll understand that by the end. Now let me start with the one that is going to make some of you close this video before I finish the sentence. Number 1, I stopped cooking with seed oils. I stopped the day I understood what they were, and I want to tell you exactly what I mean by that, because that day came late, and I wish it had come sooner. Not olive oil, not butter, not the fat your grandmother rendered from the pan on a Sunday morning. I am talking about the ones in the bottles with the cheerful labels, the ones that say heart healthy on the front and list ingredients that did not exist in any kitchen before approximately 1950. Canola, soybean, corn oil in a plastic jug that cost less than a cup of coffee. My sister Adele was meticulous about her health. That is not an exaggeration. Adele read every label. She switched to margarine the moment the magazines told her to. She bought the low-fat versions of everything, the products that replaced the fat with something they engineered in a facility to taste like fat without being fat. She walked 2 miles every morning without fail. She did not smoke. She barely drank. She was, by every measure the experts gave us, doing everything right. I remember the last time I saw Adele looking well. She came for Sunday dinner. I put butter on the table. She moved it to the side of the tray. I looked at the butter. I looked at Adele. I looked back at the butter. And I thought, we are eating in different kitchens now, even when we are sitting at the same one. Adele was diagnosed at 63. She passed at 67. I am not saying the seed oils took my sister. I'm just saying I noticed who was careful and who is still here. Here is what nobody explains to you about the oils they replaced your grandmother's lard and butter with. The process that makes them shelf-stable and clear and pourable and cheap creates compounds that your body does not know how to process. Your cells were not designed for them. Your grandmother's cells were not designed for them. These are industrial products introduced to a biological system that evolved over thousands of years. And we were told they were improvements, and we believed it, because the people telling us had credentials, and the people who had been cooking with butter for centuries did not have television programs. My mother cooked with lard. She cooked with butter. She cooked with the fat left in the pan from whatever meat had been in it the night before. She died at 89 with her mind completely intact, and her heart, her doctor said, was the heart of a woman 20 years younger. She never heard the word seed oil in her life. She never needed to. So when someone shows you the cheerful bottle and tells you it is better for you than what your great-grandmother used without question for her entire long life, think about the kitchens. Think about who was in them and how long they stayed. And then make your own decision, not the one on the label, yours. Number 2. I stopped eating processed sugar in the way it is delivered to us now. And before you stop listening, I am not talking about the sugar in an apple. I am not talking about the honey your grandfather kept in a jar by the stove. I am talking about the white refined product and all its renamed cousins that appear in things we do not think of as sweet. The bread, the salad dressing, the tomato sauce in the jar, the crackers that are supposed to be savory, the thing that shows up under 40 different names on the ingredient panel of almost every packaged item in the center aisles of every grocery store in this country. I grew up with sugar. We had it. My mother baked on Saturdays, and the whole house smelled like something warm and familiar and full, a smell you could follow home from 2 streets away, even in the cold. But the sugar in my mother's kitchen lived in a ceramic bowl on the counter, and it went into cakes on special occasions, and that was its place, and it knew its place, and we knew its place. What is happening now is not that. There was a woman in my church named Rosetta, stout woman, loud laugh, the kind of person who made every room feel like a party she had specifically arranged for you. Rosetta was not someone you worried about. She was strong. She had energy. She had opinions. I remember watching Rosetta at a church supper, filling her plate with the things that came wrapped, because they were quick and they were there, and I thought nothing of it. I watched her. I watched the plate. I watched her again, and I thought, she has no idea what she is handing her body, because neither did I, until I did. In her mid-50s, Rosetta started getting tired in ways she couldn't explain. Her joints ached. She gained weight without changing what she ate or what she thought she ate. She was told it was age. She was told it was hormones. She was told a lot of things before anyone looked carefully at what she was putting in her body every single day without thinking of it as a choice at all. Rosetta changed her kitchen at 58. She took out everything with a panel and put in things without one. Real food, the kind that goes bad if you leave it too long because it is actually alive. She lost 30 pounds over 2 years without intending to lose weight. Her joints settled. Her energy came back. She called me the year she turned 62 and said, "Connie, I feel like I got a decade back." She lived to 84. She was dancing at her granddaughter's wedding 3 months before she passed. I'm not saying the sugar was the whole story. I'm just saying I watched what happened when it left. I want to stop here for a moment because I have been talking about food and the food matters. But there is something I need you to sit with first. I have watched people I love spend the best years of their lives chasing what they were told was better. Better products, better protocols, better packaging. And meanwhile, the garden was there. The pan was there. The thing their grandmother already knew was sitting in a plain ceramic bowl on a plain wooden counter, waiting. And they walked past it every morning on their way to something more sophisticated. I do not say that with judgment. I say it with the particular weight of having watched it happen across 90 years of ordinary Tuesdays, ordinary Sunday dinners, ordinary kitchens that held more than anyone gave them credit for. The life is in those rooms. It always has been. The question is whether you go back before you run out of Tuesdays. My daughter Frances called me on a Sunday afternoon 2 winters ago, upset in the way that quiet people get upset, not loudly, but deeply. She had just come from her doctor. She was 61. Her numbers were moving in the wrong direction. She said, "Mom, I've been doing everything right." And I said, "Franny, by whose definition of right?" She was quiet for a long time. And I said, "Come over for dinner." She came. We cooked together. I showed her what right actually looks like in a kitchen that has kept a woman alive and well for 9 decades. The food and the life are not separate things. I told you you'd understand that by the end, and we're nearly there. Number 3, and this is the one that is going to ask the most of you, because it is not a single ingredient, and it is not a substance with a name. It is anything that was designed to last longer on a shelf than it would last in a garden. The preserved, the artificially stabilized, the product made in a facility and put in a box and given a name that sounds like food without technically being food in any way your body was designed to recognize. My grandmother had a pantry. Real things were in it. Dried beans in a jar, warm and dense and dark. Grains in a cloth sack, rough and clean smelling. Preserved tomatoes she had put up herself in August when the tomatoes were so ripe and heavy and red they split if you looked at them too long. There was nothing in her pantry that came from a corporation. There was nothing in her pantry that required a chemist to produce. When my husband Walter was in his 70s, his brother Martin came to stay with us for a summer. Martin was a year younger than Walter, and he looked 10 years older. He moved slowly. His color was wrong. He complained of a heaviness that wasn't weight exactly, more a kind of fog that had settled into him so gradually he'd stopped noticing it as a change. He had been living alone for some years on the things that were convenient, the canned things, the frozen things, the things you could eat from the container they came in without involving a pot or a pan. Walter and I fed Martin from our kitchen for 4 months. Real food, not a program, not a protocol. The soup made from the bones. The beans cooked long and slow with onion and herbs. The eggs from the neighbor down the road who kept chickens. The vegetables from the garden. By August, Martin looked like himself again. Not younger, not cured of being 72, but himself. The fog had lifted. The color had come back. He told Walter at the end of the summer, and I remember exactly how Walter told it to me later. He said, Martin looked at me over his coffee and said, Walter, I forgot what it felt like to actually feel well. He had forgotten. And that is the thing about these slow deteriorations. They do not announce themselves as deteriorations. They announce themselves as age. And because everyone around you is experiencing the same slow fog, because the convenient options are the only options that have been made available in the places that many people shop, there is no contrast. There is no moment where you hold the old version next to the current version and ask what changed. I am 90 years old and I am offering you the contrast. I keep a cast iron pan that belonged to my mother. It is black and heavy and smooth as river stone. My mother cooked in it every day of her adult life. I cooked in it beside her. I cooked in it alone after she was gone. I cooked in it for Walter, for Francis, for every person who sat at this table across 90 years of ordinary meals. There are people in that pan. There is my mother's Thursday pot of beans. There is the Sunday morning my father sat at this same table and sopped the last of the yolk with a corner of bread and looked up and said nothing, just nodded, because there was nothing else to say. There is Walter. There is Adele before the diagnosis. There is Rosetta laughing at something I've already forgotten. Every meal I cook, every morning I heat this pan, every time I use butter instead of the bottle with the cheerful label, it goes in. It seasons what's already there. And eventually, I know, this pan will be handed on. It will go into another kitchen. Another pair of hands will lift it. And everything that has been built into it across all those years of plain, real food and plain, real living will go with it in the only way that anything actually lasts. Walter is gone. Adele is gone. Rosetta is gone. Martin is gone. My mother, my father, every person whose name I have carried across 9 decades, 100 years of goodbyes nearly. And the thing nobody tells you is that you never get used to it. You just get more practiced at carrying it alongside everything else, alongside the Tuesday market and the garden and the pan on the stove, because the living does not stop to accommodate the losing, and you would not want it to, not really, because the living is the whole point. What I know, what 9 decades has given me that no guideline ever could, is that your body wants to be well. That is its default. That is what it is reaching for every single day if you give it the conditions it was designed for. Go through one cabinet this week. Read what is actually in the things you have been eating without thinking about it. Then go to the market. Buy one thing that came from the ground. Cook it slowly. Sit down with it. Let it be a meal and not a transaction. Do that once this week and then do it again. And if there is someone in your life who is tired in ways they cannot explain, who has been told it is just age, who has stopped expecting to feel well because they have forgotten what well actually feels like, send them this. And if your mother is still alive, I want you to hear me very clearly on this. Call her tonight. Tell her something real. That is the whole of what I know.